They say power is silent, but disrespect is always loud. When Morello Thorne, the head gate agent at JFK's Terminal 4, looked at the young woman in the oversized hoodie standing in the first class lane, he didn't see the youngest regional director in FAA history. He saw a target. He saw someone who didn't belong. He sneered, ripped her boarding pass from her hand, and threatened to put her on the no-fly list for insubordination. Clear's throat, he thought he was protecting his airline's prestige. He didn't realize he was casually declaring war on the very woman who signed his boss's paycheck. And by the time the wheels touched the tarmac, Morello would wish he had never come to work that day. The fluorescent lights of John F. Kennedy International Airport hummed with that specific headache-inducing frequency that only frequent flyers seem to notice. For Jordan Banks, it was less of a sound and more of a soundtrack to her life. At 29 years old, Jordan didn't look like the stereotypical government bureaucrat. She didn't wear the stiff, charcoal gray pants suits that her predecessors lived in, nor did she carry the battered leather briefcase that screamed mid-level management. Tonight, Jordan was simply tired. She was draped in a maroon Howard University hoodie that was 2 sizes too big, black leggings, and a pair of worn Converse sneakers. Her hair was pulled back into a messy bun held together by a single clip and sheer willpower. To the casual observer, she looked like a college student heading home for laundry day, or maybe an exhausted backup dancer coming off a tour. She definitely did not look like the newly appointed regional director of the Federal Aviation Administration's Eastern Region, the youngest person to ever hold a title, and the first black woman to do so. Final call for Flight 294 to D.C. The intercom crackled. Jordan adjusted the strap of her backpack. It contained a laptop loaded with classified safety reports and a tablet with direct lines to the Secretary of Transportation. But right now, all she cared about was seat 1A. She had been in London for a 3-day summit on international airspace safety protocols. She hadn't slept in 36 hours. She had paid for the upgrade out of her own pocket because government DMs didn't cover sanity, and she desperately needed the legroom to sleep before her 8 o'clock a.m. briefing at the Capitol. She joined the end of the priority access line. It was short, just a businessman in a suit checking his Rolex every 4 seconds, and an older couple arguing about who forgot the sunscreen. Jordan exhaled, pulling up her digital boarding pass on her phone. The screen glowed with the comforting words, "First Class, Group 1. She stepped forward. As the line moved, the podium was manned by 2 agents. One was a young woman who looked overwhelmed, typing furiously. The other was a man who looked like he had been waiting for a fight all day. His name tag read, Martello Thorne, Senior Lead Agent. Martello was tall with a kind of perfectly gelled hair that suggested he spent more time in the mirror than he did reading airline policy. He stood with his chest puffed out, scanning the passengers with a look of disdain, acting less like a customer service agent and more like a bouncer at an exclusive club where nobody was on the list. Jordan watched him berate an elderly woman for her carry-on being 1 and 2 wide moments before. He had made her test it in the metal sizer 3 times, smirking while she struggled to lift the bake. Don't engage, Jordan told herself. Just scan, sit, sleep. When it was Jordan's turn, she stepped up to the red carpet. She held out her phone, the QR code bright and ready. "Good evening," Jordan said, her voice raspy with fatigue. Morello didn't look at the phone. He didn't look at her face. He looked at her sneakers, then her leggings, then the hoodie. His eyes lingered on the university logo with a flicker of what looked like amusement or perhaps disgust. Lanes closed. Morello said flatly, his gaze shifting over her shoulder to the empty space behind her. Jordan blinked. "Excuse me," I said. "The lane is closed. Priority boarding is finished. You need to wait for Group 5. General, boarding is over there." He pointed a manicured finger toward the chaotic mass of people huddled near the economy gate, a line that stretched back toward the food court. Jordan looked at the monitor above his head. "Now boarding. Erstis Diamond Medallion. The screen says you're still boarding first class." Jordan said, keeping her tone even. "And I'm in seat 1A. I have a first class ticket." Morello finally made eye contact. His eyes were cold, a pale, watery blue that lacked any warmth. He let out a short, sharp laugh, a sound designed to make her feel small. "Miss," he said, dropping his voice to a patronizing register. "I don't know if you're trying to pull a TikTok prank or if you're just confused, but this line is for paying first-class customers, not non-revs, not employees, using buddy passes, and certainly not for," he gestured vaguely at her outfit, "economy passengers trying to sneak in. Upgrade." "I'm not sneaking anything," Jordan said, her grip tightening on her phone. "I paid full fare. Scan the code." "I'm not scanning anything," Morello counted, crossing his arms. "Because you are holding up the line for the actual priority passengers." The businessman behind the barrier, who wasn't even in line yet, cleared his throat loudly, sensing drama. "Sir," Jordan said, her voice dropping an octave, slipping into the tone she used when dressing down safety inspectors who failed to file their reports on time. "My name is Jordan Banks. I have a valid boarding pass for this flight. You are denying me boarding based on my attire, which is a violation of your airline's contract of carriage, specifically Section 4, Paragraph 2. Unless I am barefoot or wearing offensive slogans, you have no grounds to refuse me entry to this lane." The air shifted. The young female agent next to Morello stopped typing. She looked up, eyes wide. She recognized the tone. It wasn't the tone of a customer complaining. It was the tone of someone who knew the rule book better than the person holding it. But Martello Thorne was not a man who liked to be corrected, especially not by a young black woman in a hoodie. His face flushed a dull red. He stepped around the podium, closing the distance between them. It was an intimidation tactic, pure and simple. He invaded her personal space, looming over her. "Listen to me," Morello hissed, low enough that the bystanders couldn't hear the venom. "I don't care what Wikipedia told you about the contract of carriage. I run this. Got I decide who is suitable for the premium cabin. And frankly, you don't fit the profile. Now you can go stand in the back of the line with the rest of Group 5, where you could talk to airport security. Your choice." Jordan stared at him. She felt the familiar heat rising in her chest, the burning injustice she had felt 1,000 times in her career. But she also felt something else, a cold, sharp resolve. She wasn't just a passenger. She was the woman who authorized the operating license for this terminal. "Are you sure you want to do this, Morello?" she asked softly. "Get out of my line," he enunciated, pointing toward economy. Jordan held his gaze for 3 seconds, then she nodded. Slowly. "Okay," she said. "I'll go to the back." She turned around and walked away. Martello smirked, adjusting his "Yeah, works every time," he muttered to the female agent. "You got to be firm. With these people, give them an inch. They take the whole plane." The female agent didn't smile. She was looking at Jordan Banks, who had stopped 10 feet away. Jordan wasn't walking to the economy line. She was pulling a phone out of her pocket. Not her personal cell, but a sack phone with a government issue case. Morello didn't notice. He was too busy high-fiving the businessman who was finally walking up to the podium. Jordan dialed a number that very few people possessed. It rang once. Operations Center. A crisp voice answered. "Director Banks, we weren't expecting a call until you landed." "Change of plans, David," Jordan said, her eyes fixed on Morello Thorne's smug profile. "I need you to pull the ramp. Inspection logs for Apex Continental. Flight 294, and get me the Port Authority. Police supervisor on the line now." The queue for economy was a serpentine beast of frustration. Babies were crying. Tourists were repacking suitcases on the floor to avoid baggage fees. And the air conditioning seemed to have failed in just this specific section of the terminal. Jordan stood near a pillar, slightly removed from the chaos. She had the phone pressed to her ear, her voice low and clinical. "Yes, David, I'm currently at gate B12. I need a full credential check on the lead agent. Name is Martell Thorne. Diagai Wehi Ani Ibaji. Number." She squinted, recalling the silver tag on his chest. "AC for you." "Yes, I'll hold." While she waited, she watched the gate. Morello was in his element. He was laughing loudly with a pilot who had just walked off the jet bridge, clapping him on the back. He looked like the king of his tiny, carpeted kingdom. To men like Morello Thorne, power was a limited resource. He hoarded it. He used it to make people beg. He probably thought Jordan was currently sulking in the back of the line, humiliated, learning her place. "Director." David's voice came back on the line. "I have his file. Clean record. Mostly, but 3 HR complaints in the last 2 years regarding unprofessional conduct. All dismissed for lack of evidence." "Let me guess," Jordan said dryly. "The complainants were all minorities." There was a pause on the line. 2 out of 3, yes. And 1 elderly passenger with a disability. Pattern established, Jordan murmured. "David, I'm initiating a Code 7 ramp audit." "A Code 7 now?" David sounded stunned. "Director, that grounds the flight immediately. The paperwork alone is—" "I know the paperwork, David. I wrote the protocol," Jordan cut in. "If the lead agent is disregarding basic contract of carriage rules based on bias, I have reason to believe he is cutting corners on safety protocols as well. Bias in the cabin leads to negligence on the tarmac. It's a culture issue. Ground the plane." "Understood. Initiating Code 7. The tower is being notified." Jordan hung up. She slipped the phone back into her pocket and rejoined the line, but she didn't move to the back. She walked straight up to the economy boarding scanner where a frazzled young man named Kevin was checking tickets. "Zone 5 isn't called yet, Mom," Kevin said tiredly. "I know," Jordan said. "I'm not trying to board yet. I just wanted to ask, has the flight crew finished their pre-flight checklist?" Kevin looked confused. Yeah, the captain is already in the cockpit." "Why?" "Just curious." Suddenly, the PA system chimed. It wasn't the polite, pre-recorded voice. It was a harsh, crackling sound. "Attention passengers on Flight 294 to DC. Please remain in the terminal area. We are experiencing a minor administrative delay. A collective groan went up from the 200 people waiting in the economy line. At the priority podium, Marcelo Thorne's head snapped up. He grabbed his walkie-talkie. Ops, this is Thorne at B12. What delay? We're 5 minutes from. Pushback. About an on-time bonus. Riding on this. Jordan couldn't hear the response, but she saw the color drain from Martella's face. He slammed the walkie-talkie down on the podium. He looked around, furious. His eyes scanned the crowd, looking for someone to blame. His clear-throat gaze landed on Jordan, who was standing calmly near the economy desk. He stormed over, leaving the priority podium unmanned. He barked, pointing a finger in her face. What did you do? The audacity was almost impressive. I'm standing in line, Morello, Jordan said calmly. Like you told me to. Don't play dumb. With me, he sneered, spittle flying from his lips. I saw you on the phone. Who did you call? Did you call corporate? Did you make up some sob story to customer service? I don't call customer service, Jordan said. Listen, here, you little. Morello stepped forward, his hand reaching out as if to grab her arm. Don't touch her. The voice came from behind Jordan. A large man in a suit, the businessman from the priority line, stepped forward. I saw what happened earlier. You were out of line, pal. Back off. Modelo spoon. Around. Sir, this is a security matter. This passenger is disrupting flight operations. She's standing there, the businessman argued. You're the one shouting. She's a security risk, Morello yelled, his composure completely fracturing. He keyed his radio. Security to gate B12. I have an unruly passenger refusing instructions and inciting a disturbance. Jordan raised an eyebrow. Inciting a disturbance, he was digging his own grave with a shovel made of lies. Within moments, 2 TSA officers and a Port Authority police officer came jogging down the concourse. The crowd parted, cell phones instantly whipping out to record the drama. Morello straightened his jacket, putting on his victim face. He pointed directly at Jordan. Officer, that woman, she's been harassing staff, refused to stay in her assigned zone, and now she's making threats against the flight. The Port Authority officer, a veteran cop named Sergeant Miller, looked at Jordan. He saw the hoodie. He saw the sneakers. Then he looked at Morello, the man in the crisp uniform. Mom, Sergeant, Miller said, his hand resting near his belt. I need you to step away from the gate and show me your ID. Jordan didn't flinch. She reached slowly in her back pocket. He's lying. A woman from the crowd shouted. She didn't say anything. Quiet. Morello snapped at the crowd. Officer, I want her removed from the terminal. She's banned from this airline effective immediately. Jordan pulled out her wallet, but she didn't pull out her driver's license. She pulled out a sleek black leather folio with a gold crest embossed on the front. She flipped it open. The silver badge inside caught the overhead lights. It wasn't a police badge. It was the Department of Transportation Federal, seal flanked by the words Director, Aviation Safety and Administration. Sergeant Miller squinted at the badge. He froze. He looked up at Jordan's face, really looking at her this time. Officer Miller, Jordan said, her voice projecting clearly so the phone cameras could pick it up. I'm Jordan Banks, Regional Director of the FAA. I am currently conducting an unscheduled field audit of this gate regarding a violation of federal passenger rights, statutes, and potential discriminatory screening practices. She turned her gaze to Morello. And this agent, she pointed at Morello, who looked like he had just swallowed a brick, just filed a false police report in front of 50 witnesses. The silence in Terminal 4 was deafening. Morello opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Now, Jordan said, snapping the badge folio shut. Officer Miller, I'd like to file a complaint against Mr. Thorne for harassment. But first we have a plane to inspect. Inspect? Morello squeaked. Yes, Morello. Jordan smiled, but it was a shark's smile. Since you were so concerned about rule breaking, I want to make sure everything on your flight is perfectly up to code. Every single screw. The atmosphere at Gate B12 had shifted from annoyance to the kind of electric tension usually reserved for boxing matches. The administrative delay had officially become a spectacle. Jordan Banks didn't wait for an invitation. She walked past the stunned Sergeant Miller and the frozen Marcello Thorne stepping onto the jet bridge. The cool, damp air of the tunnel hit her face, a welcome relief from the stifling heat of the terminal. She wasn't just walking onto a plane. She was walking into a crime scene of negligence. And she was the lead investigator. You can't go down there, Morello yelled, his voice cracking. He started a chase after her, but Sergeant Miller extended a burly arm, blocking his path. She has federal jurisdiction, Mr. the Thorne, Miller said, his voice heavy with warning. And considering you just tried to have a federal agent arrested for standing, I'd suggest you stay right here and shut up. Down the jet bridge, Jordan stepped onto the aircraft. The flight attendants were in the middle of their pre-flight prep. The lead flight attendant, a woman named Beverly with a tight bun and a tired smile, looked up from the galley. Welcome aboard, honey. But General, boarding hasn't. Beverly paused, noticing the ID hanging from Jordan's neck and the grim expression on her face. FAA inspection, Jordan said, her voice projecting command. I need to speak to the captain. Now a moment later, the cockpit door opened. Captain James M. Mallister stepped out. He was a man in his 60s with silver hair and the confident swagger of a pilot who had flown everything from Cessnas to 747s. He looked at Jordan, young, black, dressed in a hoodie, and frowned. What's this about? We're 5 minutes from pushback. Who are you? Director Jordan Banks, FAA Eastern Region, Jordan said, handing him the physical copy of the Code 7 authorization she had just printed from her portable printer in her bag. Captain, I have reason to believe the gate agent, Mr. Thorne, has been bypassing mandatory safety checks to expedite boarding for an on-time bonus. I am initiating a full cabin and manifest audit. Captain Mallister looked at the paper. Then he looked at Jordan. He didn't sneer like Morello. He knew the name. Clear his throat. Everyone in the industry had heard of the Iron Director, who had grounded an entire fleet in Miami last month over faulty wiring. Jordan Banks, Mallister muttered. I heard you were in London. I'm everywhere, Captain. Jordan replied. Let's see the maintenance log. For the next 20 minutes, Jordan tore the plane apart, metaphorically but with surgical precision. She checked the fire extinguishers. She checked the oxygen canister pressure. She checked the first aid kit seals. Morello, who had eventually been allowed to stand by the aircraft door under police supervision, watched in horror. He was sweating profusely. He knew that if she found one thing, just one outdated sticker or frayed belt, she could legally ground the bird. And if the plane was grounded due to his negligence or the chaotic environment he created, his career was Toast, please, Morello whispered to the young agent, Saf, who was standing next to him. Call Sterling. Call the station manager. Tell him to get down. Here. I already did, Safara whispered. Back, her face pale. He's on his way, and he's furious. Inside the cabin, Jordan stopped at row 12, the emergency exit row. She ran her hand along the window sill. She inspected the overhead bin latch. Then, she knelt down. Captain, Jordan called. Out. Mallister walked over. What is it? The floor lighting track. Jordan pointed. The plastic casing is cracked. On the aisle side. Sharp edge exposed. That's cosmetic, Mallister argued, though he sounded unsure. Maintenance. Signed off on it. It's a tripping hazard. In an emergency evacuation, Jordan corrected him. Clears throat, snapping. A photo with her secure tablet. Regulation 14 in CFR 25.812. It's a no-go item unless it's taped and secured, which it isn't. And look here. She pointed to the seat pocket. The safety card is for a $737,800. This is a $737,900. Yeah. Mallister cursed under his breath. Cleaning crew must have swapped it. Wrong equipment on board. Jordan stood up. That's a violation. She turned to the front of the plane where Morello was hovering. Mr. Thorne, Jordan said, her voice carrying through the silent cabin. You were so concerned about the rules of your first-class line. It seems you didn't care enough to check if the safety cards matched the airplane. That is a direct failure of the pre-boarding cabin sweep, which you signed off on 10 minutes ago. Morello stammered. I trusted the cleaning crew. You signed the log, Jordan said ruthlessly. Your signature, your responsibility. She turned to the captain. Captain, Mallister, this aircraft is unfit for service until the lighting is repaired, and the cabin is re-equipped with the correct safety signage. Ground it. Ground it. Morello shrieked. You can't ground a full flight over a plastic crack in a card. We have 200 people waiting. The delay cost alone will be $10,000. Jordan looked at him, her eyes cold. Safety doesn't have a price tag, Morello, but stupidity does. And you just racked up a big bill. She keyed her. Radio. Ops, this is Banks. Flight 294 is grounded. Code red. Cancel the slot. The chaos in the terminal was now absolute. When the announcement was made that the flight was canceled, the collective groan of 200 passengers sounded like a dying beast. People surged toward the podium. What do you mean canceled? I have a wedding. I have a connection in D.C. Morello Thorne was pinned against the back wall of the podium, looking like a rat trapped in a corner. He was trying to deflect, blaming federal overreach, but the passengers weren't buying it. They had seen the interaction. They knew this was personal. Then the crowd parted. A man in a three-piece suit stormed down the concourse. He walked with the heavy, angry stride of a man whose dinner plans had been ruined. It was Richard Sterling, the station manager for Apex Continental. Sterling was a legend at JFK, mostly for his ability to make problems disappear and for his ruthlessness with unions. He saw the police, the angry mob, and his grounded plane. His face turned a dangerous shade of purple. Thorne, Sterling bellowed. Morello flinched. Mr. Sterling, thank God. You have to stop her. This woman, she's crazy. She grounded the plane over a safety card. She's abusing her power. Sterling ignored Morello and looked around. Where is she? Jordan stepped out of the jet bridge, looking calm and collected. She had put her phone away and was holding a clipboard she had commandeered from the flight deck. Right here, Richard, Jordan said smoothly. Sterling froze. He squinted. Then his eyes widened. Director Banks. Sterling's aggressive posture deflated instantly. He knew. Jordan. He had sat across from her during the union negotiations last year. He knew that she was the only person in the Eastern region who could revoke his station's operating license with a single phone call. Hello, Richard. Jordan said. It's been a while. Didn't know you were flying with us today, Sterling stammered, smoothing his tie. He shot a look of pure venom at Morello. Why wasn't I notified? Because your lead agent, Jordan gestured to Morello, decided that I didn't look like I belonged in the priority lane. He refused to scan my ticket. He refused to look at my ID. And then he called the police and accused me of inciting a riot. Sterling turned slowly to face Morello. The silence that fell over the group was heavy. Is this true, Morello? Sterling asked, his voice deceptively quiet. Sir, she was wearing a hoodie, Morello pleaded, pointing at Jordan's outfit. She looked like she didn't look like a director. I was just protecting the brand. Protecting the brand? Jordan laughed, a dry, humoral sound. Morello, you just humiliated a federal regulator. In front of 200 people, filed a false police report and triggered a Code 7 audit that revealed your team is pencil whipping safety checks. You didn't protect the brand, you lit it on fire. Sterling closed his eyes and rubbed his temples. He was doing the math in his head. The canceled flight, the passenger compensation, the fines from the FAA for the safety violations Jordan had undoubtedly found. Director Banks, Sterling said, trying to salvage the situation. I apologize profusely. This is a misunderstanding. We can fix this. I can get another aircraft towed over. We can get you on your way in an hour. First class, of course. Champagne on the house. No, Richard, Jordan said firmly. We're past champagne. This isn't about my seat anymore. It's about him. She pointed a finger at Morello. This man abused his authority. He profiled me. And when I asserted my rights, he weaponized the police against me. That is a security threat. An agent who uses law enforcement to settle petty ego disputes is a liability to the safety of this airport. Jordan turned to Sergeant Miller. Officer, I would like to press charges for filing a false report, and I want to formally request that his SIE badge, his security identification, display area badge, be revoked immediately pending investigation. Morello's knees actually buckled. Losing his cider badge meant he couldn't work at any airport in the country. It was a career death sentence. You can't do that, Morello screamed, tears finally welling up in his eyes. I have a mortgage. I'm the lead agent. Not anymore, Sterling said coldly. Sterling looked at Marcello with zero sympathy. He turned to the young agent. Safira, give me his badge. No. Morello backed away, clutching his lanyard. You can't take it. I'm the victim here. Set me up. Give me the badge, Morello. Sterling roared. Morello looked around for support. He looked at the passengers. They were holding up their phones, filming his meltdown. He looked at the captain. Mallister just shook his head and turned away. With trembling hands, Morello unclipped his badge. He handed it to Sterling. Escort him out, Sterling said to the security guards. He's trespassing. The sight of Morello Thorne being escorted out of Terminal 4 was not dignified. He wasn't in handcuffs yet, but he was flanked by two large port authority officers. He was sobbing, a messy, ugly sound that echoed off the high ceilings. But the universe and Jordan Banks weren't done with him yet. As Morello was being walked past the seating area, a young woman with bright green hair and a smartphone setup stepped into his path. She was live streaming. "Yo, is this the guy?" she shouted to her phone. "Chat, this is him. The gatekeeper of Karenville." Martello tried to hide his face. "Get that camera away from me. You didn't mind the cameras when you were yelling at that lady?" The streamer shouted back. Jordan watched from the podium. She felt a vibration in her pocket. She pulled out her personal phone. A link had been sent to her by her assistant in D.C. It was a TikTok video. It had been posted 10 minutes ago by the businessman who had stood behind her in line. The caption read, "Power tripping agent tries to bully the wrong woman. Wait for the badge flip. Justice Desert FAA a airport drama." The video already had 400,000 views. In the video, the audio was crisp. You could hear Morello's sneering voice clearly. "I don't know if you're trying to pull a TikTok prank. Go stand in the back." You could see him pointing his finger in Jordan's face, and you could see the moment Sergeant Miller realized who Jordan was. The comments were scrolling so fast they were a blur. "He is done. Imagine talking to your boss's boss like that. I know this guy. He made me throw away my breast milk last week because the bottle was suspicious. Fire him." Clear's throat. The internet had found Martello Thorne, and the internet is undefeated. Back at the podium, Richard Sterling was frantically typing on his BlackBerry. "Director," Sterling said, his voice strained. "He's gone. Terminated. Effective immediately. I'm issuing a press release now apologizing for the incident. We are rebooking all passengers on partner airlines. We will pay the fines." Jordan looked at Sterling. "That's a start, Richard, but I want a full audit of your training protocols regarding bias and conflict de-escalation. I want on my desk by Monday morning, or I ground the whole terminal." "You'll have it," Sterling promised, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Good." Jordan picked up her backpack. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to find another way to D.C. since you can let my flight. We could get you a private car." Sterling offered quickly. "A limo? It's the least we can do." "No thanks," Jordan said. "I'll take the train. At least the conductors check tickets before they check outfits." She turned to leave, but stopped. She looked at Saf, the young agent who had been terrified the whole time. "You," Jordan said gently. Shira jumped. "Me?" "You tried to warn him," Jordan said. "I saw you. You knew the rules. You were just scared to speak up against a bully." Saphira nodded, tears in her eyes. He's my supervisor. He writes my reviews." "Not anymore," Jordan said. She pulled a business card from her folio and handed it to Safara. "Call my office on Monday. The FAA needs inspectors who actually read the manual. You have potential, Safara. Don't let men like Morello teach you how to do this job." Saphira took the card as if it were made of gold. "Thank you, Director. Thank you." Jordan walked away, the crowd actually parting for her this time, not because she was first class, but out of pure respect. Meanwhile, at the curb outside terminal, Martel Thorne was standing on the sidewalk. His badge was gone. His uniform shirt was untucked. It started to rain, a cold, miserable New York drizzle. He pulled out his phone to call an Uber. His hands were shaking so bad he dropped it. When he picked it up, the Screen was cracked. He saw a notification from his email. Subject: Notice of termination. Housing allowance. Revocation. Martello froze. He lived in Airline. Subsidized corporate housing near the airport. It was part of his senior lead package. The email stated he had 48 hours to vacate the premises due to gross misconduct. He was jobless. He was about to be homeless. And as a police cruiser rolled up slowly next to him, flashing its lights, he realized the legal nightmare was just beginning. Sergeant Miller rolled down the window. "Mr. Thorne," Miller said, "I need you to come with us." The district attorney saw the video. They want to add interference with federal transportation to the charges. Morello looked at the sky. He looked at the terminal where he used to be a king. "Get in the car, Morello," Miller said. As Morello slid into the back of the police car, the rain intensified, washing away the gel in his hair, leaving him looking exactly as small as he had tried to make Jordan feel. 2 weeks had passed since the incident at JFK Terminal 4, but the storm was far from over. In fact, it had just made landfall in a Manhattan courtroom. Martello Thorne was not a man who accepted defeat. His ego, bruised and battered, had calcified into a dangerous kind of delusion. Clear's throat, he was convinced he was the victim of a woke mob and a power-tripping government official. He sat in the plush leather chair of the conference room at DuPont and Associates, a law firm notorious for taking high-profile defamation cases. Across from him sat Arthur Kane, a lawyer who looked like a reptile in a bespoke suit. Kane smelled money. The viral video had ruined Morello's life. Yes, but it had also made him famous. And in America, infamy was just a different kind of currency. "We sue them all," Kane said, tapping a gold pen on his legal pad. "We sue Apex Continental for wrongful termination. They fired you without due process to appease public outrage. And we sue Jordan Banks personally for defamation and torch interference with your employment contract." Martel's eyes lit up. "Can we really sue the FAA director?" She wasn't acting as a director when she stood in that line. Kine lied smoothly. She was a passenger when she flashed that badge. And had you arrested, she stepped outside her scope of employment. We'll paint her as an arrogant bureaucrat who destroyed a working class man's life because he didn't bow down fast enough. The jury will hate her. They filed the suit the next morning. Thorne versus Banks et al. The damages sought were astronomical. $50 million. The media frenzy reignited. Morello went on talk shows. He wore a soft sweater, looked at the camera with sad puppy dog eyes, and told a fabricated story about how Jordan had been screaming profanities at him before the camera started rolling. He claimed he was just following security protocols and that Jordan had weaponized her race and her badge to crush him. A terrifying portion of the internet believed him. Jordan started receiving death threats. The FAA hesitated, worrying about the optics of a public legal battle. But Jordan Banks didn't hesitate. She walked into the deposition room 3 weeks later. She wasn't wearing a hoodie this time. She was wearing a tailored navy suit that looked like armor. She sat down opposite Morello and Arthur Kane. Morello smirked at her. He felt powerful again. He had a shark lawyer. He had a GoFundMe that had raised $100,000 for his legal defense. He thought he was untouchable. "Miss Banks," Arthur Kane began, turning on the video recorder. "Let's start with the events of October 14th. Is it true that you approached the podium with an aggressive attitude?" "No," Jordan said calmly. We have witnesses who say otherwise, Kane. Bluffed. Mr. Thorne claims you. Threatened his job before he even spoke. To you. Jordan looked at Morello. Mr. Thorne claims a lot of things, like the time he claimed a diabetic passenger's insulin pump was a suspicious device and confiscated it, nearly causing a medical emergency in 2023, or the time he claimed his service. Dog was aggressive because it barked. Once. Kane stiffened. Objection. Irrelevant. Past history. It's very relevant. Jordan's lawyer, a sharp-witted DOJ attorney named Elenina Ross, interjected because it establishes a pattern of discriminatory behavior and abuse of power. We are here to talk about this incident, Kane. Clear's throat snapped. Ms. Banks, did you or did you not ground a commercial airliner costing the airline thousands of dollars simply because you were angry about being denied entry to a priority lane? Jordan leaned forward. The room temperature seemed to drop. I grounded the aircraft, Jordan stated clearly, because your client, Mr. Thorne, signed a federal affidavit the pre-flight cabin security release at 6:42 p.m., stating he had personally inspected the cabin. At 6:45 p.m., Clear's throat eye found 3 separate violations that were plainly visible. That means Mr. Thorne falsified a federal document. That is a felony. Mr. I didn't ground the plane because I was angry. I grounded it because your client committed a crime. Morello shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Technicalities. Kane waved his hand. A cracked light. A wrong card. You were looking for excuses. And then there is the matter of the police report. Jordan continued, ignoring him. Mr. Thorne told Sergeant Miller, I was inciting a disturbance. We have subpoenaed the security footage from the terminal cameras, not the cell. Phone video, the high-definition airport. Surveillance with audio. Morello went pale. There's audio on those. Terminal. For installed new audiovisual surveillance units last month, Jordan said, a small dangerous smile playing on her lips. I signed the budget approval for them myself. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a USB drive. She slid it across the table. This is the raw footage, Mr. Kane. It captures everything from the moment I entered the line. It captures Mr. Thorne mocking my clothes to his colleague. It captures him saying, and I quote, give them an Eden. They take the whole plane. And, most importantly, it captures the moment he lied to the police. Arthur Kane stared at the USB drive. He looked at his client. Morello was shaking his head, mouth thing. No, no, no. Now, Jordan said, standing up. You can continue with this lawsuit, Mr. Kane. But I promise you, if this goes to trial, I will play this video on a 40 feet screen, and then I will countersue Mr. Thorne for filing a false claim, malicious prosecution, and I will personally recommend to the DOJ that they pursue the felony charges for the falsified security documents. He's looking at 5 years in federal prison. Jordan buttoned her jacket. You have 24 hours to drop the suit, issue a public apology, and return every cent of that GoFundMe money to the donors. If you don't, Clear's throat, I will destroy you. Legally, of course. She walked out of the room. The silence she left behind was heavy enough to crush bone. The collapse of Martel. Thorne's world was not the swift, merciful drop of a guillotine. Clear's throat. It was a slow, agonizing erosion, a landslide of consequences that started with a pebble of arrogance and ended with an avalanche of ruin. 6 months had passed since the incident at JFK, Terminal 4. But for Morello, time had become a distorted loop of lawyer meetings, public humiliations, and the cold realization that he had become a national pariah. The lawsuit he had so arrogantly filed, Thorne v. Banks, had been withdrawn less than 24 hours after Jordan Banks played the security footage in the deposition room, but the damage was irreversible. In his attempt to burn her, he had doused himself in gasoline and handed her the match. The courtroom in the Southern District of New York was packed. It wasn't just the press anymore. It was the public. People had traveled from D.C., from Chicago, even from London. They were there to see the gatekeeper, the man who had become the face of every petty tyrant they had ever encountered in their lives. They wanted to see if the system would actually work. Morello sat at the defense table, a shadow of the man who had pined at the podium. His expensive gelled hair was gone, replaced by a buzz cut that showed the gray invading his temples. The sharp, tailored uniform was a distant memory, replaced now by a cheap, ill-fitting suit his public defender had procured. Arthur Kane, the shark who smelled money, had vanished the moment the GoFundMe funds were frozen, leaving Morello with an overworked, court-appointed attorney who looked at him with barely concealed pity. The charges were severe. The district attorney hadn't just pursued the false police report. They had dug deeper, guided by the breadcrumbs Jordan Banks had exposed during her Code 7 audit. They found a pattern. Falsified maintenance logs, security bypasses for VIP friends who tipped well, the administrative delays he engineered to punish passengers he didn't like. It wasn't just about disrespect anymore. It was about federal crimes. 18 U.S. Code. Baragraph 1. False statements to federal agents. 49. U.S. Code Paresa 46306. Registration violations regarding aircraft safety logs, NYS penal law. Paragraph 24's Bay, falsely reporting an incident. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named her Reynolds, stood up for her. Closing statement, she didn't shout, she didn't need to, she simply walked over to the jury box holding a single piece of evidence, the safety card for $737,800 that had been found on the 737900. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Reynolds began, her voice echoing in the silent room. Martello Thorne wants you to believe this was a misunderstanding. He wants you to believe he was a stressed employee dealing with a difficult passenger. But the evidence tells a different story. This card represents a choice. On the night of October 14th, Mr. Thorne chose to sign a document swearing he had checked the cabin. He lied. Why? Because checking takes time, and time is money. But when Jordan Banks, a woman charged with the safety of our skies, attempted to board, he didn't see a regulator. He saw someone he could crush to feel big. And when she stood her ground, he didn't just lie to her. He lied to the police. He weaponized the law against the very person who enforces it. Reynolds turned and pointed at Morello. He didn't just break the rules, ladies and gentlemen. He broke the public trust. A man who will lie to put an innocent woman in handcuffs is a man who will sign a safety log without checking the brakes. He is not a victim. He is a danger. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. When they returned, the air in the courtroom was thick enough to choke on. The foreman, a middle-aged school teacher, stood up. He didn't look at Morello in the matter of the people versus Morello Thorne on the count of false Statements to federal agents. We find the defendant guilty. Morello flinched, as if struck on the count of falsely reporting an incident. Guilty on the count of violation of safety protocols. Guilty. The word guilty rang out 3 times, each one a hammer blow shattering the glass house Morello had built. Judge Holloway, a woman known for her leniency with first-time offenders, but her ruthlessness with those who abused power, adjusted her glasses. She looked down at Morello over the rim of her spectacle. Mr. Thorne, please stand. Morello stood up, his legs trembling so violently he had to grip the table. Mr. Thorne, Judge Holloway said, her voice devoid of warmth. I have read the letters of support from your mother. I have read the character references from your former colleagues, though I note there are very few. They paint a picture of a man under pressure. But I also have the victim impact statement from Director Banks. She didn't ask for vengeance. She asked for accountability. The judge paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. You treated your position at that airport not as a service, but as a thiefum. You judge people by their clothes, their skin color, and their perceived status. You thought you were the king of Terminal 4. Today you learn that in this country no one is above the law, and certainly not the people we trust to keep us safe. She opened a file in front of her. 4. The crimes you have been convicted of, and considering the malicious intent behind your actions toward Director Banks, I'm sentencing you to 36 months in a federal correctional institution. A gasp went up from the gallery. 3 years. It was a heavy sentence for white-collar crime, but the message was clear. Furthermore, the judge continued, you are ordered to pay restitution to the Apex Continental Airline for the costs of the grounded flight totaling $42,000. And upon your release, you are permanently barred from holding any employment in the aviation or transportation security sectors. You will never wear a badge again, Mr. Thorne. Morello collapsed back into his chair, burying his face in his hands. The sobbing started then, ugly, raw, and desperate. But it was too late. The gavel banged down. 1 year later, the autumn sun streamed through the massive glass windows of JFK Terminal 4. The rhythm of the airport was the same, the rolling wheels of suitcases, the announcements, the hurried goodbyes. But the feeling was different. Jordan Banks walked toward Gate B12. She wasn't flying. Today, she was inspecting. She wore her official FAA windbreaker, her ID clearly displayed. She watched the line at the podium. It was long but moving efficiently. Behind the desk stood Safra, the young agent who had once trembled in Morello's shadow. She was now the station manager. She wore the gold stripes on her epaulets with pride. Jordan watched as a young man approached the priority lane. He was wearing ripped jeans, a stained t-shirt, and headphones. He looked like a skater kid who had gotten lost. "Excuse me," the kid mumbled. "Is this the first class lane?" A year ago, Martello Thorne would have laughed him out of the queue. He would have pointed to economy and made a joke about bus fare. But Sapphira didn't blink. She smiled warmly. "It certainly is," Sapphira said. "May I see your boarding pass?" The kid held up his phone. Sapphira scanned it. The machine beeped green. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Henderson," Sapphira said. "Sat 2A. Enjoy the flight." The kid grinned, surprised by the kindness, and walked onto the jet bridge. Sapphira looked up and saw Jordan standing by the pillar. Her eyes widened, and she rushed around the podium. "Director Banks, Saf!" exclaimed. I didn't know you were coming. Surprise inspection. Jordan smiled, extending her hand. But, honestly, Safara, I don't think you need me here. You're running a tight ship. We're trying, Safara said, glancing at the new plaque on the wall behind the desk. It was a framed copy of the Passenger Bill of Rights and Respect, a document Jordan had authored and pushed through Congress in the wake of the Thorn scandal. How is everything else? Safara asked tentatively. Jordan knew what she meant. The industry is learning slowly, but we're getting there. Fear makes people follow rules, but respect makes them follow leaders. You're a leader now, Saf. Thank you, Cirrus said, blushing. Oh, and I heard about Marcello. Jordan's expression remained neutral. Oh, yeah. Safra lowered her voice. My cousin works at the federal facility in Danbury. He says Martel is working in the laundry. Apparently, he got written up last week. For what? Jordan asked. For trying to tell the other inmates how to fold the sheets properly, Safara said, suppressing a giggle. He told the guard. He was the senior laundry lead. They put him in solitary for insubordination. Jordan laughed, a genuine, hearty laugh that felt like a weight lifting off her chest. Even in prison, Morello couldn't let go of the need to control, the need to be better than everyone else. He was trapped in a prison of his own making, long before the bars ever slammed shut. Some people never change, Jordan said, shaking her head. But the world does. She checked her watch. I have to head to D.C. My train leaves in an hour. Train? Sapphira asked. Director, we have a seat for you in first class on the house. Jordan looked at the plane, then back at Safra. She smiled. Thanks, Saphira. But I think I'll take the train. I like the view from the ground sometimes. Keeps me humble. Jordan Banks turned and walked away, her sneakers squeaking softly on the polished floor. She blended into the crowd, just another passenger in a hoodie. Powerful not because she demanded to be seen, but because she saw everything. Power is often mistaken for loudness, for the ability to make others feel small. But true power is competence. It is knowing who you are when the world tries to tell you otherwise. Martello Thorne learned that the hard way. He thought he was the gatekeeper, but he forgot that the gate doesn't belong to the guard. It belongs to the people who built it. Jordan Banks didn't just win a lawsuit. She rewrote the rules, ensuring that the next time someone in a hoodie steps up to the red carpet, they'll be met with a smile, not a sneer. If you enjoyed this story of justice, served cold and high-flying karma, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more stories like this. Have you ever been judged at an airport or faced a power-tripping employee? Tell me your story in the comments below. I read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next episode of Drama and Revenge. Thanks for watching. Clears throat.